So I'm starting to think about this idea of, you see, we've had this thing, the liberal coalition, or the progressive stack. Also, this is, that somebody is disabled, LGBTQ, some kind of oppressed ethnic minority. They're a woman, or they appear to be a woman, or they think they're a woman, so therefore even more oppressed. So I've been starting to think about this, that in light of the recent SCOTUS decisions and how this is going to affect this phenomena in politics. And so one of the things about this is that the progressive stack is going to be pretty much meaningless. One of the key reasons why is DEI is, of course, discriminatory basis on race. So it's racist. So the government can't allow it. So more and more, this is going to start really, really being a problem for a lot of firms. And there's firms that what they'll be able to do is easily switch over to simply doing things that would test whether you could do the job. Amazon already does this. They have this rigorous mathematics test. Like, if I remember correctly, it's like Amazon and Google, depending upon what level of engineering you're going into, they have lots of mathematics tests. And so really, Amazon mathematics problems are pretty fascinating to see. I really mean that. There's some cool math channels that have things that are on the Amazon test, and you're like, bro, that's fucking what, and it's that whole thing of being able to figure out how to solve the problem. You're given this and you have to still figure out more, and then you start to solve the problem. Amazing stuff, great stuff. So that's why, see, at a certain stage, so note that Amazon works. Compared to a lot of things that are happening right now, Amazon functions. Here's actually something that I was even thinking about in relationship to that I wasn't thinking would fit into this, is that let's compare it to something that we keep finding doesn't work, and that's AAA video games. And that more and more, everyone jokes about how AAA video games, they've adopted, these companies have adopted DEI programs and this, that, and the other. But the key thing, though, is what really it appears is a lot of the video game studios no longer have video game players working for them. I mean, most clearly. Because at some point, you would figure that these people would be so into the idea of creating this game, they're like, okay, we're about to put this on the market. Okay, we're all going to geek out, have a party, and see who could play it the best. Because of course, you see, at the stages of developing a game, you're not really playing it. You're actually trying to break the game constantly. Well, back in the day, this was a part of quality assurance and stuff. But I mean, this would be something you're always testing to see whether something works. So it's not really like fun. It's not until you get to play it that it's fun like that. I mean, you get and so you would think that there would be the big night, the big dress rehearsal. There we go, the big dress rehearsal. And that they go through the whole act, and then everybody goes out and and you go to a restaurant, and and hopefully the director could foot the bill, or and the people who the producers and all that, they're there, they meet the producers, you meet the people funding it all, and people's families, it's the big dress rehearsal. So you would think that that's when the video game players would be like, oh shit, this doesn't work right. That's still not functioning right, this, that, or the other. But I mean, no matter what people might want to theorize, that seems to be the most likely case. In my view, that it's not so much just DEI, it's that they literally just have somehow become an industry that one of the most important aspects of it, you love playing video games, isn't necessarily like a universal and key component to being in it. Because then there's also too much about then, various games that have come out recently that people have especially the consulting thing, that's where you really see it. That it's pretty clear these are not really people that they're just not those weird, like they'll just go through like once, twice, 3 times a month. They got a new game. These are not those people. Like you have that homeboy who you're just amazed. He's a machine. He's but these aren't those people. And so, yeah. And so, there's just so much now showing out with different groups and stuff showing out. People appearing as they are. And so, something now that is definitely because of the recent SCOTUS decisions, and now what it's looking like with the momentum behind Trump and behind his picks for all these other levels of the government. How Heritage Foundation is rock and roll. Heritage rocks. And really, I mean, a lot of these people, these organizations, what they need to do is they need to find people who do music that is old-fashioned, that it's a young voice who does it old-fashioned style, well-written old-fashioned songs that like every successful social movement in America has some good version of nostalgia and throwback, but it's done in the present style. You always need that. You need your anthems. The proud to be an American because I'm free and brave and yay and no, dum-dum music. No more rice beer rock. It's unbelievable how people know who Johnny Cash is, but we still have these anthemic rice beer rock like songs that are supposed to be uniting America, and it's like no one ever liked this song. No one understands why you guys on the Republican side love these cheeseball fucking songs that aren't good. Like, stop it. Stop. Don't you see? Do you see? Has Taylor Swift not taught you anything yet? So, real country has slide guitars. Real country has slide guitars, and real country would have somebody on a harmonica. So it's just, that it's just that at least on one song on the album, somebody would have the harmonica out, and that, yeah, and so it's just they need that. There's a little side item, they need that. They need that aspect of Americana, so that they could have anthems for a period of time that's historic. This is absolutely historic. The SCOTUS decisions, that especially Chevron, is the one that really has now made my mind like, okay, what Chevron is going to make happen especially is stuff having to do with housing and urban development. The Chevron decision is going to really, really make it possible to stop a lot of HUD stuff, the affirmatively furthering Fair Housing Act, the AAA. Most likely that is Kaputski's now. With the Chevron decision, most likely that program is done and done forever. That locals will sue it out of existence. Yeah. So that was one of the first things I started thinking about. That now the subsidiarity movement, where local power will be able to tell the federal government not only no, but now that there's things like America First Legal and Judicial Watch, and more people are familiar with such types of law firms, that there's going to be more of a recruitment of such law firms for lawsuits against the federal bureaus. And then, of course, it's the Republican Party has just simply gotten far better organized about such issues. And they know. They're like, no, take this on at this level and get it in the courts. That's it. Tim Pool saw that. Tim Pool was one of the only people who figured that out. No, what they're trying to do is get it into the courts. They want it in the courts because they want to go through discovery. That's the gold. The interviews and discovery of various forms of documentary evidence. That's always where that's what you want. Because then, once you've gone through discovery, most likely the case that evidence it can be public. And that's the whole point, is to disclose why and how and who is a part of some bureau doing something that people fundamentally find untoward, and that, like the Biden administration has shown, it's because the Democrats really do fundamentally sort of hate Americans who they just see as living in some way that they don't like. They just happen to have no people from Somalia in their neighborhood out in the middle of Nowheresville, Kansas. You know what they should have? A bunch of Somalis in their neighborhood. That's what they should have. And so the programs like that, ideas like that, stuff like that, it's gone. It's going to take another few years of lots and lots of lawsuits and people figuring out how these bureaus are going to try to constantly get around this stuff. And then that is what gets Trump his firing powers. As people start to figure out, wait a second, hold on, none of us like this policy. None of us know who really agreed to this policy. We have all of these, people who we voted in at the local level. They're against it, yada, yada, yada. Why is this still happening? And so what is going to end up happening is that they're going to vote for people who are federal representatives or senators that are committed to this idea of, no, the president's going to be able to just dismiss people who work for the federal government. And the unions will go up against it. Everyone will turn against the federal unions. They'll just do it. It won't be there won't be anything that people will be like, oh, maybe this is going too far. No, that will not be what happens. When people realize, obviously we don't want this bureau to do this. There's all these people have been voted into office that, they're trying to stop you from doing this. Could you please stop? And when that doesn't happen, when they don't stop, that's going to prompt people to, and the beauty of this too is the baby boomers are dying. This is a key part of something that the liberals don't get. The progressive movement, these kind of weirdos, and especially the socialists don't get. It's like, no, the baby boomers are passing on, and people are becoming like, baby boomers are soft on Marxism. Baby boomers are the kind of people who think that maybe the revolution, that it could work, or the baby boomers are these people who are soft on commie, because they still see it as sort of like they were misled by 1950s dad. about it all, and maybe, and I mean, really, I mean, if you really think about capitalism, as they lean back in their chair in their house that they're retiring in, their public pension, from their job that they, last 20 years of their career they spent working for the government, and I know that's not universal even at all. That's a pretty small sample, but I'm just doing a little bit of shitting. And so anyway, the boomers and this point of view of being soft on public unions, being soft on things that are leftovers of Marx, of the kind of rise of popularity of Marxism in the early 1900s in America. When the boomers are gone, that there's fundamentally this strict dividing line now. There's not a demographic of people soft on Marx. You either like him or he's bad news in every possible way. and anybody who's a Marxist, no, you're okay. Don't let them know where you live, and I mean, just that whole understanding, that way that things have gotten. The boomers don't get it, especially liberal boomers. Liberal boomers don't know nothing about this kind of thing. Like, they have just no clue whatsoever about it. It's kind of fascinating too, how all this stuff that's all over the internet, like they just know nothing about it. No interest at all, and no interest. Like this weird idea that they're doing something for the younger generations, but no real interest in knowing what the younger generations are thinking or doing, like economically, like that, the economic one where people are shocked that young people are doing so poorly, that it's like, how don't you know that? Like, how aren't you seeing that with your eyeballs? And then I realized, there's something about what's going on with the boomers at the present, that a lot of them just can't recognize what they're seeing around them, or they're kind of blind to it, which does make me worry about myself. That's why it's like I kind of like suffering at the bottom, because it makes me stay sharp. I see what's at the bottom. I don't know much about what's on the surface, but I know what's down here in the bottom. in the bilge of society. I'm not that tough. I'm not that cool. But the thing though I was thinking about with the boomers is, when they're gone, it's going to be like, oh, Marxists need to not be allowed to teach. People are, what? Marxists aren't going to be allowed? Yeah, because of quotes like this, and people who are Marxists, if they believe stuff like this, they would be pretty bad people. They would be pretty evil. And that's going to come up, and you see the boomers, because of how much they compromised on evil, and how wishy-washy and hippy-dippy they are about evil, and that, hey, well, maybe a little bit of evil, it's like a good time, rock and roll, blah, 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 blah. You should have been there in the 80s, it was fucking awesome, we were doing coke, and and I really mean it. Like, if you grew up someplace with liberal boomers, really, it's just, oh my God, it's just how much these guys would have to brag about all the fucking sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and there's more rock and roll, and then there was more rock and roll, dude, and then I was at this place, it was so rockin', dude, and then, and they start naming musicians, these goofy old blues musicians, that it's like, you look into them and you're like, this sounds terrible. what the fuck is this? You know, what is this corny ass shit? You know, and no, it takes like a really long time to find like what their jams were. You know, everybody loves this Cornball shit, and you're like, why does everyone love this Cornball song when these songs from when the guy was like 20 were rocking? You know, like what the fuck? You know, like, dude, you know, he did too much coke, bro. Too much cocaine and whiskey. He should have let it be. A whole generation of fellas should have let that cocaine and whiskey be. So when the boomers are gone, it's just the left, the younger end of the left, they're not going to have actually kind of a culture intact like sort of the left end of the boomers did. Where the left end of the boomers really, these were people that were letting go of a lot of what they had been raised with in the 50s and in the 60s, and as time went on, they finally kind of loosened up their tie. One version of this was when my teacher was talking about how it wasn't until he got back from Vietnam that, and there's a photo, he's showing me a photo, and he goes, yeah, you know, blah, 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 and see, I grew my hair really long, you know, because that was the big thing, you know. And then he goes, yeah, and I had blue jeans. And it was, and I don't know what, but he goes, yeah, I wasn't allowed to own blue jeans. In his family, gentlemen didn't wear dungarees. This is a guy who, so he was on stage and personally knew the What's It Brothers, time has come to, like, so I mean, this isn't, you know, like, this was a guy who he started in this very, very, very typical conservative New York family, but by the end of it ends up like being one of these people should have let the whiskey and cocaine be, like, serious. And serious. So, you know, this was some like a generation that got more and more kind of corrupted. But by the time you get with Gen X, like, we were like, dude, no, oh yeah, oh, my mom, yeah, she smokes pot. You know, like that line from Sublime, you know. And so it's this different thing now with younger generations that are just like, yeah, pretty lame. Pretty lame. Yeah, that's pretty lame. And so they're not into it. So the boomers don't really know, like, how the Trump movement, for a lot of young guys, like, they're voting for the first time, and one of the key things they're doing is putting down the behavior pills that mom makes them take. You know, they're getting off the drugs, or getting off the alcohol, started getting into shape. They started to improve their lives because there was a part of their mind that was like, I kind of want to be like in the club of men of excellence. And there's a lot of people who, you know, they can laugh all they want. They could say, oh yeah, alpha males, huh, you know, or something. But no, it's that they wanted to be associated with the aspect of our culture that celebrates excellence and discipline and gentlemanliness, and especially that's the key, gentlemanliness. Not they wanted to be Mr. Kickbox. That's not what they're looking for. That wasn't it. You know, they saw that as an important aspect of you know, physical development. But I mean, there's plenty of people who knew, like, yeah, I'm not going to be Mr. Kickbox. You know, what I should probably do is make sure I have money so that I could buy ammo for the firearm that I'll make sure to have and train on in case somebody wants to treat me to some kickboxing. So, so in case somebody wants to gank, you know, carry a gap. So but black liberals are going to have a particularly hard time coming up, because there's now there's a hard dividing line. there is not any longer this kind of like, oh yeah, I mean, what we did to them, no, there is not a lot of people who think like that under the age of about 45. The younger you get, the less and less and less people buy that, really. You're just seeing this kind of something weird going on with people who are like, oh yeah, oh my God, I can't believe the injustices, and it's, but where are these people when when people need the hood to be safe? These people aren't there to deliver justice. And oddly enough, by the end of it, it looks like, a company like BlackRock might end up owning the hood after all of this. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird that it works that way? So, the black liberals, there's just not much. It's all going to go down to the state level, and at the state level, that's where that's going to change the culture. That like literally, people will move to different states. There will be a totally different kind of concentration points across the country. A lot of cities, there's too many cities that their difficulty keeping up with their debts is going to cost them everything. They're going to have to sell like property of the city, but then it's what kind of, what would they sell? This property of the city. And so that's also a kind of a part of, in my suspicion, this talk of 10 new cities. And it's because there's so many cities that it's like they literally are going to have to almost be abandoned and have an entirely new government, entirely new groups of people move there, entire new development plans. Just because of just how terribly, how terribly some cities are doing right now. And that their housing, that housing is going to utterly collapse. So there's going to be these states that'll have these cities that are just crushed by the success of their housing bottoming out. Like Austin is one of these cities right now that everything was fantastic. People were moving there in droves. The value of people's homes was rising. Everything was perfect. But then too many people moved to Austin too fast. So now their housing prices are fucking crashing. And the city had to spend something on amenities. Spending on amenities, you usually go into debt, municipal debt in some way. And so if people are leaving suddenly, then this is going to mean that it's like, well, that's taxation that's not coming in. They were probably developing these amenities for a population that they were absolutely seeing. And they had every reason to believe was going to increase. And so it's not a bad thing. It's nobody's fault, really. It's people trying to give the voters what they want. And maybe even a little more. And so it's bad news. I mean, just a lot of, for the left end of the culture, this is going to be kind of socio-politically just a time of just kind of repeated bad news. Like every story is kind of going to get kind of worse as your ideas are judged unconstitutional. And the programs you want are seen as unconstitutional, or local, whatever local power is like, oh, no. The only way that this is going to happen is if ... no men in dresses allowed, and it's going to happen. And as the boomers start to pass on, it's going to get easier to get people to, it's going to get easier in a way, because also it's going to work. Big part of this is that it's going to work. You will have people feeling happy feelings. It won't be this land of darkness and clouds and everybody, oh, the order, oh, everyone's following the rules, no, it's actually, people are going to just be really happy, and it's going to be easy to not break rules because it'll be real, these will be real simple things, and you did crime, you don't commit crime against other people, and it will be easier to not break rules because you'll have plenty of good things to occupy you. So and hopefully like remunerative things. See, every once in a while I'll see something like this, I'm like, I should grab that, and then I'm like it's like human ferret. I'm like, think about it, like a ferret, I think about like Bucky the cat from that comic I love so much, Get Fuzzy. How he hates ferrets. He hates ferrets and he hates monkeys. And it's just so funny. Like, he's always plotting against he's sure the monkeys and ferrets are plotting against him. He's always plotting against he's always laying traps for them and stuff. It's so great. Or coming up with some scam, something to get the ferrets, find out what they're planning, and stuff like that. I love it. So good. All right. Well, so this was just some stuff I was thinking about, rolling over the new SCOTUS decisions, rambling a little. Bluebird. Yeah, good day. I'm like, what's up with you, dude? And so, the other thing I was thinking about is something was rolling around in my head about the Scott Adams saying and the Ann Coulter heuristic. And like things like that are going to become like more normal. The N-word girl is going to become a bit more normal, I'm thinking. All right, later.